It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon, the kind where nothing remarkable happens, just the soft hum of a suburban street, sunlight stretching lazily across the pavement, and a police cruiser idling near a modest home at the end of the block. Officer Daniel Reeves stepped out, adjusting his uniform as he glanced toward the front gate. Beside him, his German Shepherd Rex stood alert but calm, ears flicking at distant sounds most humans would never notice. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The house looked untouched. Curtains drawn. Mail stacked neatly. Stillness. But then Rex stopped. Mid-step. His body stiffened, tail low, not wagging, not relaxed. A quiet, almost inaudible whine slipped from his throat. Daniel frowned, tugging gently on the leash. "Easy, boy, what is it?" Rex didn't move. Instead, he planted himself firmly in front of the gate, blocking it. A sharp bark broke the silence, then another. Not aggressive. Not playful. Urgent. Daniel's chest tightened slightly. Rex wasn't trained to react like this without reason. He scanned the property again, slower this time. Still nothing. No movement. No sound. Rex stand down. But the dog refused. His paws dug into the ground, eyes locked on the house like he was seeing something Daniel couldn't. A low growl followed, deep and uneasy, sending a chill through the otherwise warm afternoon air. That's when Daniel felt it, that subtle shift. The kind you couldn't explain but couldn't ignore. Rex wasn't just reacting. He was warning. And moments later everything changed. Before we continue, remember to like, share and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? The afternoon felt ordinary. Quiet, steady, predictable. Sunlight stretched across the pavement in long golden lines, warming the quiet suburban street. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint rustle of dry leaves and the distant hum of traffic far beyond the neighborhood. It was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. Officer Daniel Reeves pulled his cruiser to a slow stop at the curb. The engine idled softly. For a moment he didn't move. He just sat there, one hand resting on the steering wheel, eyes scanning the house ahead. Small. Neat. Still. A single-story home with pale siding and a narrow walkway leading up to a metal gate. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking any glimpse inside. A stack of mail sat untouched near the front door. Daniel exhaled quietly. "Probably nothing," he murmured. Beside him, Rex shifted slightly. The German Shepherd sat upright in the passenger seat, alert but calm. His dark eyes followed Daniel's gaze, ears twitching at sounds too faint for human notice. Daniel glanced at him, a faint smile forming. "You ready, partner?" Rex's tail gave a slow, steady thump against the seat. Reliable. Focused. Always in tune. Daniel opened the door, stepping out into the warm afternoon light. The air carried a soft scent of grass and sun-warmed concrete. Somewhere down the block, a lawn mower droned lazily. Routine. Everything about this call felt routine. He walked around the cruiser and opened the passenger door. Rex hopped out smoothly, landing with quiet confidence. His paws touched the pavement without a sound. Daniel clipped the leash to his harness. "Just a welfare check," he said softly. "In and out." Rex stood still for a moment, then followed. They moved together up the sidewalk, a practiced rhythm built over years of partnership. Daniel's boots made soft, measured steps against the concrete. Rex walked slightly ahead, posture relaxed, but attentive. Always attentive. As they approached the house, Daniel's eyes drifted again to the small details. The mailbox. Full. Too full. A few envelopes bent awkwardly, as if they'd been shoved in days ago. He slowed slightly. "That's odd." Rex's ears flicked. The front yard was tidy, but something felt paused. Like time had stopped here while the rest of the neighborhood moved on. Daniel reached the gate. It creaked faintly in the breeze. Unlocked. He rested his hand on it, glancing back at Rex. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's." Rex stopped. Just stopped. Mid-step. Daniel blinked. The leash went taut. Rex's body stiffened, every muscle tightening beneath his coat. His tail lowered, not tucked but no longer relaxed. His ears angled forward sharply. Listening. Daniel frowned. "Rex." No response. The dog didn't move. Didn't blink. just stared. Straight at the house. A soft sound escaped him. Barely audible. A whine. Daniel's grip on the leash tightened slightly. That's not like you. He crouched a little, lowering his voice. What is it, boy? Rex's nose twitched. He took a half step forward. Then stopped again. This time more firmly. As if something invisible stood in his way. Daniel followed his gaze. The windows. Closed. Curtains drawn tight. No movement. No sound. Nothing. A breeze passed through the yard, brushing against Daniel's uniform. Warm. Still peaceful. But something inside him shifted. Just a little. Come on, Daniel said gently, giving the leash a light tug. Rex didn't budge. Instead, his paws pressed harder into the ground. Holding. Resisting. Another soft whine. Longer this time. Daniel's chest tightened faintly. Rex heel. Still nothing. The dog's focus didn't break. Not even for a second. It wasn't distraction. It wasn't confusion. It was certainty. And that made Daniel pause. He stood there for a moment, the quiet of the street pressing in around him. The distant lawnmower had stopped. Even the breeze seemed to settle. Silence. Unusual silence. Rex let out a low breath. Then a single bark. Sharp. Not loud, but purposeful. Daniel straightened slowly. His eyes moved across the house again. The door. The windows. The stillness. He stepped closer to the gate. Rex moved instantly. Not forward, but sideways. Blocking him. Deliberate. Controlled. Daniel blinked, surprised. Hey! Rex stood between him and the gate now. Firm. Unmoving. Another bark. Slightly louder. Daniel's heartbeat picked up just a fraction. Rex, stand down. The command was calm. Measured. Rex didn't obey. Instead, his body lowered slightly, weight shifting forward. Alert. Protective. A quiet growl followed, low, uneasy, not aggressive but deeply warning. Daniel felt it then. That subtle change. The kind you couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore. He looked at Rex again. Really looked. The dog's eyes weren't wild. They weren't panicked. They were focused. Locked onto something Daniel couldn't yet see. Or understand. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Maybe this wasn't routine. He swallowed slowly. Talk to me, partner. Rex didn't move. Didn't blink. Another soft whine escaped him, quieter now, almost pleading. Daniel's grip on the leash softened. His instincts, the human ones, were beginning to catch up. Something wasn't right. He could feel it now. Faint but growing. The air felt heavier. The silence deeper. Even the sunlight seemed dimmer somehow. Daniel took a careful step forward. And Rex blocked him again. Faster this time. More urgent. A sharp bark cut through the stillness. Then another. Daniel froze. His pulse quickened. Not fear. Not yet. But awareness. The kind that made every sense sharpen. Every sound matter. Every detail count. He looked past the gate again. The house stood exactly the same. Still. Quiet. Unmoving. But now, didn't feel peaceful. Felt wrong. Daniel exhaled slowly. All right. He took a small step back. Rex's posture shifted just slightly. Not relaxed, but relieved. As if he'd been heard. Daniel nodded faintly. Okay. I'm listening. For a moment nothing happened. Just the two of them standing there. Man and dog. Waiting. Then Rex turned his head just a fraction. Toward the side of the house. A narrow path Daniel hadn't noticed before. Partially hidden by a fence. Rex's ears twitched. His body angled toward it. Another soft whine. Daniel followed his gaze. The path disappeared into shadow. Quiet. Unseen. A place no one would look first. Daniel's chest tightened. Is that it? Rex didn't bark this time. He just stood there. Still. Certain. Daniel swallowed. The calm afternoon was no longer calm. Something had shifted. And whatever it was, Rex had felt it long before he did. Daniel looked back at the house one last time. Then toward the narrow path. His decision came slowly. Carefully. All right, he said under his breath. Let's check it out. He adjusted his grip on the leash. Stepped away from the gate. And followed where Rex was leading. because for the first time that afternoon, he wasn't in control. Rex was. And deep down, Daniel knew something. Something important. Something waiting. Just out of sight. He took another step forward, and the quiet afternoon disappeared behind him. Moments later, everything began to change. The narrow path along the side of the house felt different. Quieter. Cooler. As if the sunlight didn't quite reach it the same way. Daniel slowed his steps as he followed Rex, the leash held loosely but ready. Gravel crunched softly beneath his boots, the sound echoing just enough to make the silence around them feel heavier. Rex moved ahead with purpose. Not pulling. Not rushing. Just certain. His nose hovered low, occasionally lifting to catch something in the air. His ears stayed forward, alert to every faint shift in sound. Daniel glanced back once toward the street. It was still there. Bright. Normal. Safe. But here, along this narrow stretch of shadow between the fence and the house, everything felt muted. He exhaled slowly. All right, easy. Rex paused. Just for a second. His head tilted slightly toward the house wall. His nose twitched again, sharper this time, followed by a soft, uneasy huff. Daniel stopped beside him. What do you got? Rex didn't look at him. Didn't break focus. Instead, he took 2 careful steps forward, then halted again. Another whine. Soft. Low. It wasn't fear. Daniel knew the difference. Rex wasn't scared. He was concerned. Deeply. Daniel crouched slightly, scanning the ground. Nothing obvious. No broken glass. No footprints. No signs of forced entry. Just dry leaves gathered along the edges and a faint layer of dust that hadn't been disturbed in days. Too clean. Too untouched. He stood again, slower this time. No one's been back here. The realization settled quietly. Rex shifted his weight, then turned his head toward a small window along the side wall. Closed. Curtains drawn. But not fully. A thin gap allowed just enough darkness to peek through. Rex stared at it. Unmoving. Daniel followed his gaze. The glass reflected only a faint shimmer of light. Nothing inside. Nothing visible. Still, Rex stepped closer. One paw lifted, then placed down gently. Careful. Deliberate. Another soft whine slipped from his throat. Daniel's chest tightened again. Rex, what is it? The dog leaned forward slightly, nose inches from the wall beneath the window. He sniffed once. Twice. Then froze. Completely still. The kind of stillness that meant something had clicked. Daniel felt it immediately. That shift. That moment when instinct turns into certainty. His heartbeat picked up. Not fast. Just enough. He stepped closer. What do you smell, boy? Rex didn't answer. But his body said everything. Tense. Focused. Unwavering. Then, a faint sound. So quiet Daniel almost missed it. A dull thud. From inside. He blinked. Waited. Listen. Nothing. Just silence again. His brow furrowed. Did you hear that? Rex's ears flicked sharply. He heard it too. The dog stepped sideways, aligning himself directly beneath the window now. His tail remained low, barely moving. Then came another sound. Softer this time. A faint scrape. Like something shifting slowly. Daniel's breath caught. Hello? He called out, his voice calm but firm. No response. He stepped closer to the wall, trying to peer through the narrow gap in the curtain. Nothing. Just darkness. But not empty darkness. It felt occupied. Rex let out a short bark. Sharp. Controlled. Daniel's pulse ticked higher. Police, he called louder now. Is anyone inside? Silence. Then, a weak sound. So faint it barely carried through the wall. A breath. Or a whisper. Daniel froze. His eyes widened slightly. Someone's in there. Rex shifted instantly. Energy rising. Not frantic. Focused. Ready. Daniel moved toward the back of the house, following the path as it curved around. His steps were faster now, more deliberate. Stay with me, he murmured. Rex stayed tight at his side. Every movement synchronized. They reached the backyard. And everything changed again. The air felt heavier here. Still. Too still. The grass was slightly overgrown, bending unevenly as if it hadn't been touched in days. A small chair lay tipped over near the patio. Daniel's eyes scanned quickly. Details. Clues. Something felt off. Very off. "Hello?" he called again. This time his voice carried farther. Still no clear answer. But Rex moved. Suddenly, he pulled toward the back door. Not aggressively, but urgently. His nails clicked softly against the concrete as he approached the door and stopped. Right in front of it. Another whine. Higher now. Daniel followed quickly. The door was closed. Locked. But something about it. He leaned closer. There. A faint mark near the handle. Scratches. Not fresh. But not old either. Rex sniffed the bottom edge of the door, then stepped back slightly, pacing once twice. Then returning. Repeated. Daniel noticed the pattern. He keeps coming back here. His mind began to connect the pieces. The window. The sound. The stillness. And now this. He knocked firmly. "Police. If you can hear me, come to the door." Nothing. Then, a faint thump again. Closer this time. From inside. Daniel's jaw tightened. Someone's definitely in there. Rex barked. Louder. More urgent. Then he did something Daniel had never seen him do before. He pressed his body against the door. Not pushing. Not forcing. Just staying there. As if guarding it. Or waiting. Daniel stepped back slightly, pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14, he said, voice steady but serious. "I've got a possible situation at the residence. Requesting backup and medical standby." A pause. Then confirmation. He clipped the radio back. Looked at Rex. The dog didn't move. Didn't look away. His eyes stayed fixed on the door. Unblinking. Certain. Daniel nodded slowly. "All right." He exhaled. "We're not leaving." The calm routine from earlier was gone, replaced by something heavier. Something real. He stepped closer to the door again, placed his hand against it. Cold. Still. But not empty. Behind it, someone was there. Waiting. Barely holding on. And Rex knew it long before anyone else. Daniel tightened his grip on the handle. And paused. Because in that moment, he understood something clearly. This wasn't just instinct. This was urgency. And whatever was inside that house didn't have much time. Daniel's hand stayed on the door handle. Still. Unmoving. For a moment he just stood there listening. The silence behind the door felt heavier now. Not empty but strained. Like something fragile was holding itself together on the other side. Rex didn't move. His body remained pressed close to the door, ears forward, breath steady but alert. Waiting. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Easy," he whispered. His training told him to proceed carefully. Wait for backup. Assess. Control the situation. But something about this moment didn't feel like it could wait. Still he hesitated. He pulled his hand away from the handle and stepped back. Just one step. Rex reacted instantly. A soft whine. Then a small frustrated huff. Daniel glanced down at him. I know. He ran a hand briefly along Rex's neck, feeling the tension in the dog's muscles. "You're trying to tell me something." Rex looked up at him. Eyes steady. Intent. Then back at the door. Daniel's jaw tightened. His instincts were pulling in two directions now. Procedure. And trust. He had worked with Rex long enough to know this wasn't random behavior. Rex didn't overreact. He didn't misread. Not like this. But entering a private residence without clear confirmation. That was different. That carried weight. Responsibility. He turned slightly, scanning the backyard again. Still nothing. No movement. No voices. Just that same quiet stillness pressing in from all sides. "Maybe we're reading too much into it," Daniel muttered almost to himself. Rex's ears twitched at the tone. Daniel crouched again, trying to ground the moment. Could be someone knocked something over. Maybe they're asleep. Even as he said it, didn't feel right. Rex let out another low sound. Not a bark. Not quite a whine. Something in between. Uncertain. But insistent. Daniel sighed. "You're not letting this go, are you?" Rex didn't respond. He simply stepped forward again, placing himself directly between Daniel and the rest of the yard. Blocking. Guiding. Redirecting. Daniel noticed. His eyes followed the subtle shift in Rex's posture. Back to the door. Always back to the door. He stood slowly. All right. His voice was quieter now, less certain. He reached for the handle again, then stopped. The sound came again. Faint. Barely there. But closer this time. A weak scrape, followed by something like a breath catching. Daniel froze. His head tilted slightly. Hello? He called softer now. Can you hear me? A pause. Long. Heavy. Then. A whisper. Or maybe just air moving. But it was enough. Daniel's chest tightened. That's not nothing. Rex barked once. Sharp. Focused. Daniel nodded faintly. Yeah, you hear it too. He stepped closer again, more decisive this time. But then, his radio crackled. Unit 14 backup is en route. 8 to 5 minutes. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. 5 minutes. It didn't sound like much. But right now, it felt long. Too long. He looked at Rex. The dog was still locked in place, tension running through his entire frame. Waiting. Listening. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. We wait, he said quietly. Rex didn't agree. It showed in the way his posture shifted. Subtle, but clear. He stepped forward again, pressing lightly against the door. Then back. Then forward again. A pattern. Repeated. Urgent. Daniel watched closely now. Not dismissing it this time. Trying to understand it. What are you telling me? Rex's nose brushed the bottom of the door. Then he stepped back sharply. Ears flicking. Listening again. The silence stretched. Then, a dull thud. Heavier this time. From inside. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. That wasn't small. Rex barked again. Louder. More insistent. Daniel's hesitation cracked. Just a little. He stepped forward quickly, placing his ear near the door. Listen. Nothing. Then, a faint dragging sound. Slow. Weak. Like something or someone moving across the floor. Daniel pulled back immediately. No. His voice was firm now. That wasn't normal. That wasn't safe to ignore. Rex stepped closer to him. Not blocking this time. Standing beside him. Aligned. Ready. Daniel looked down at him. There was a shift between them. Unspoken. But clear. Trust. Finally trust. All right, Daniel said quietly. We're done waiting. Rex's body eased. Just slightly. As if something had finally clicked into place. Daniel tried the handle. Locked. He exhaled slowly. Okay. He stepped back, scanning quickly. A nearby window. Closed. Curtains drawn. No easy access. He turned back to the door. His mind working fast now. Measured. Controlled. Stay close, he said softly. Rex moved immediately to his side. Calm. Focused. Daniel raised his hand and knocked again. Harder this time. Police. If you can hear me, we're coming in. No response. Just that same heavy silence. But now it felt different. Not empty. Not quiet. But fragile. Breaking. Daniel stepped back. Just enough. Then, he made the decision. One clean motion. Controlled force. The door gave way with a sharp crack. Not violent. Not chaotic. Just enough to open. Daniel stepped inside immediately. Police. His voice filled the space. Firm. Clear. Rex followed instantly. And the air changed. Inside. It was dim. Cool. Still. The smell hit first. Not strong. But noticeable. Stale air. Closed space. Time passing without movement. Daniel's eyes adjusted slowly. Shapes formed. Furniture. Still. Undisturbed. But something wasn't right. Not here. Not in this silence. Rex moved ahead. Then stopped. His body lowered slightly. Focused again. Locked onto something deeper inside the house. Daniel followed his gaze. A hallway. Dark. Narrow. Leading further in. Rex took one step forward. Then looked back. Waiting. Daniel nodded once. I'm right behind you. They moved together. Slowly. Carefully. Each step measured. Each sound amplified. The house felt suspended. Like it had been holding its breath. And now, it was finally about to exhale. Rex stopped again halfway down the hall. His ears lifted sharply. Then, a sound, clear this time, a weak broken breath. From a room ahead, Daniel's heart jumped. There! Rex didn't wait. He moved forward with purpose. Not rushing, but certain. Daniel followed close behind. And in that moment, every doubt he had earlier, every hesitation, faded completely, as now it was clear. Rex hadn't been mistaken, not even for a second. He had known, from the very beginning, and whatever waited in that room ahead, was the reason why. The hallway felt narrower with every step. Dim light filtered in from behind them, stretching long shadows across the floor. The air was cooler inside, still carrying a faint stale scent that hadn't been disturbed in days. Daniel moved carefully, each footstep deliberate, measured. Rex stayed just ahead, his pace slow but unwavering. His body remained low, not in fear but in focus. His ears were locked forward, catching every subtle sound that drifted through the silence. Then, he stopped, abruptly, right outside a partially closed door. Daniel halted behind him. His breathing slowed instinctively. What is it? Rex didn't answer. He didn't move. He just stared at the door. Still, unblinking. A faint sound slipped through the gap. A breath. Weak. Shallow. Daniel's chest tightened. That's it. He stepped closer, placing his hand gently against the door. It felt cold. Too cold for a warm afternoon. He pushed it slightly. The door creaked open just enough to reveal a sliver of the room inside. Dark. Quiet. But not empty. Rex let out a low, soft whine. Not urgent this time. Not sharp. But filled with something deeper. Concern. Daniel pushed the door wider. Slowly. Carefully. And stepped inside. The room was dim, the curtains drawn tight, allowing only thin lines of light to cut through the darkness. Dust hung faintly in the air, catching those beams in still, suspended patterns. First, it was hard to see. Then, a shape. On the floor. Near the far side of the room. Daniel froze. Hello. No response. He stepped forward cautiously. Police. Can you hear me? Still nothing. But Rex moved. Quietly. Purposefully. He approached the figure on the floor and stopped just a few feet away. His body lowered slightly again, his tail still, his head tilted just enough to observe. Then, another breath. Clearer this time. Fragile. Daniel's pulse surged. There's someone here. He moved quickly now, closing the distance. And then he saw an elderly man, lying on his side, unconscious, or barely conscious, his face pale. His breathing shallow and uneven. One arm stretched awkwardly, as if he had tried to reach something and failed. Daniel dropped to one knee beside him. Sir, can you hear me? No response. But the man's chest rose again. Weak. Barely. Daniel reached for his radio immediately. Unit 14 to dispatch. Confirmed occupant inside, elderly male, unconscious but breathing. I need medical assistance immediately. His voice stayed steady. Controlled. But urgency threaded through every word. He glanced at Rex. The dog hadn't moved. He remained just beside them now, watching closely. Silent. Focused. Present. Daniel gently placed 2 fingers near the man's neck. Pulse. Faint. But there. Stay with me, Daniel murmured softly. He adjusted the man's position slightly, careful and slow, ensuring his airway remained clear. Help's on the way. You're not alone. Rex shifted closer. Just one step. Then another. Until he was near the man's side. He lowered his head slightly, sniffing the air. Then, he sat. Quietly. As if standing guard. Daniel noticed the subtle change. The tension in Rex's body eased. Not completely. But enough. As if the immediate danger had been found. But not yet over. Daniel exhaled slowly. You found him. Rex's ears flicked slightly at the sound of Daniel's voice. But his focus stayed on the man. Watching. Waiting. Another breath came from the man. Still weak. But more consistent now. Daniel kept his voice calm. You're going to be all right, sir. Just hang on. Time stretched. each second longer than the last. The quiet of the room wrapped around them, broken only by the faint rhythm of breathing. Then, a sound from outside, distant at first, then growing. Sirens. Approaching. Daniel felt a small wave of relief pass through him. They're almost here. Rex stood slowly. His posture shifted again. Not tense. Not rigid. But aware. Listening. The sirens grew louder. Closer. Daniel stayed beside the man, steady and calm, keeping him stable. "You did good, partner," he said quietly without looking up. Rex stepped closer to him, their shoulders nearly aligned, a silent understanding passing between them. Moments later, voices, footsteps, movement at the front of the house. "Back here," Daniel called out. The response came quickly. EMS. Relief. Real relief. The kind that settles deep. Paramedics entered the room, moving with practiced efficiency. Equipment was set down, vitals checked, oxygen prepared. Daniel stepped back slightly to give them space. But he didn't leave. He stayed close, watching, waiting. Rex remained at his side, still, quiet, as if making sure everything was truly under control. One of the paramedics glanced at Daniel. "You found him just in time." Daniel nodded faintly, but his eyes shifted to Rex. "He did." The paramedic followed his gaze briefly, a small understanding smile, then back to work. The room filled with movement now, purpose, action. But beneath it all, a calm began to return. Slowly, gently, the kind that follows when something fragile has been caught, before it breaks completely. Rex finally relaxed his posture, just slightly. His tail gave a small, slow movement. Daniel noticed. And for the first time since stepping into the house, he allowed himself to breathe. Fully. Deeply. Because the tension, the uncertainty, the quiet fear that had built since the moment Rex stopped at that gate, was beginning to fade. But something lingered. A thought. Quiet. Persistent. Daniel looked down at Rex again. "You knew." His voice was soft. Almost a whisper. Rex didn't respond. He didn't need to, because it was true. From the very first moment, he had known. And because of that, someone was still breathing, still here, still holding on. The sirens outside faded into the background. The room settled into a new rhythm. And in that quiet shift, the weight of what had almost been lost became clear. The house felt different now. Not silent in the same way as before, but quieter in a softer sense. The kind of quiet that follows urgency. Controlled. Focused. Paramedics moved with calm precision around the elderly man, their voices low, steady, reassuring. Equipment clicked softly. Fabric shifted. Oxygen flowed with a gentle hiss. Daniel stood just outside the doorway, watching, letting them work. Rex remained beside him, posture relaxed but attentive, eyes tracking every movement in the room. His ears flicked occasionally, responding to the subtle rhythm of voices and motion. For the first time since arriving, there was space to think. Daniel exhaled slowly. His gaze drifted across the room. Small details began to surface now that the urgency had eased. A glass of water sat on a nearby table, untouched. Dust had begun to settle along the rim. A chair slightly angled, as if it had been pushed back quickly. A blanket half folded on the couch. Everything told a quiet story. Interrupted. He stepped a little closer, careful not to disturb the paramedics. "How long do you think he's been here?" Daniel asked softly. One of the medics glanced up briefly. "Hard to say exactly," she replied. "But at least a couple of days, maybe more." Daniel's chest tightened. Days. Alone. Waiting. His eyes moved back to the man. Now stabilized but fragile. Breathing assisted. Still unconscious. Still caught somewhere between holding on and letting go. Rex shifted slightly. Just one step forward. Then stopped again. His attention drifted. Away from the man. Toward the corner of the room. Daniel noticed immediately the subtle change. Rex's ears lifted. His head turned. Focus redirected. Daniel followed his gaze. A small hallway branching off from the living room, barely noticeable at first, leading deeper into the house. Daniel frowned slightly. What is it now? Rex didn't bark, didn't whine. He simply stood there, looking, waiting, that same quiet certainty returning. Daniel hesitated. The man had been found. Help had arrived. The situation was under control. But Rex wasn't done. That much was clear. Daniel glanced at the paramedics. You've got him, he asked. We're good. One of them nodded. Go ahead. Daniel gave a small nod, then turned back to Rex. All right, show me. Rex moved immediately. Calm, purposeful. He walked toward the narrow hallway, paused silent against the floor. Daniel followed closely behind. The light dimmed again as they stepped away from the main room. The air felt cooler here, still carrying that faint closed-in scent. The hallway was short. 2 doors. One slightly open, the other closed. Rex stopped between them. He sniffed the air once, then turned toward the closed door. Daniel's brow furrowed. That one. Rex stepped closer. His nose hovered near the bottom edge. Then, a soft scratch. Gentle, deliberate. Daniel's pulse shifted again. Not fear. Not urgency like before. Something quieter. More curious. He reached for the handle. Turned it slowly. The door opened with a faint creak. Inside, a bedroom. Simple. Neat. Undisturbed. At first glance nothing seemed wrong. A bed carefully made. A dresser. A small lamp. Curtains drawn. Stillness. But Rex stepped in. Slowly. Scanning. His nose lifted slightly, catching something in the air. Daniel followed. His eyes moved across the room, taking in the details. Then, he saw it. A photograph. On the bedside table. Framed. Daniel stepped closer. Picked it up gently. An older man. The same man from the living room. But smiling. Standing beside a young woman and a child. A family. Happy. Alive. Present. Daniel's chest tightened again. Where are they? Rex moved again. Toward the closet. He stopped in front of it. Saturday. Still. Waiting. Daniel stared at him for a moment. Then back at the closet. A quiet realization began to form. Something not finished. Something not complete. He stepped forward slowly. Opened the closet door. Clothes hung neatly. Shoes aligned. Everything in place. Except a small bag. Packed. Resting near the bottom. Daniel crouched slightly. Unzipped it. Inside. Clothes. Personal items. Essentials. Prepared. But not taken. He frowned. They were leaving. Or planning to. Rex remained still. Watching. Daniel closed the bag gently. Stood again. His mind began to piece it together. The untouched mail. The quiet house. The man alone. A plan interrupted. Suddenly. Without warning. He stepped back into the hallway. Then toward the living room again. The paramedics were preparing to move the man onto a stretcher now. Careful. Steady. Daniel approached one of them. Hey, when you found him, was there any sign of anyone else here? The medic shook her head. No, just him. Daniel nodded slowly. His eyes drifted back toward the photograph in his hand. Family. Not here. Not now. A thought settled in. Quiet. Heavy. They don't know. Rex stepped up beside him again. Close. Grounding. Daniel placed the photo back on the table gently, then looked down at Rex. You felt all of it, didn't you? Rex blinked slowly. Calm. Present. Daniel exhaled. The situation was bigger than just a rescue. It was a moment suspended in time. A man left behind by circumstance. A family unaware. And a dog who refused to walk away. Outside, the sirens had faded. The world continued, unaware of how close this moment had come to being lost. The paramedics began moving the stretcher. Let's go, one of them said. Daniel stepped aside, watching carefully as they guided the man out of the house. Rex stayed beside him, still, until the very last moment. Then, he turned his head, back toward the hallway, just for a second, as if making sure. Nothing else remained unseen. Daniel noticed, and something in his chest settled. Not fully, but enough, because the truth had been found, but it had come quietly, hidden, Almost missed. And if not for Rex, it would have stayed that way. Daniel followed the stretcher outside. The sunlight hit differently now. Brighter. Warmer. Alive. He paused at the doorway. Looked back once. At the house. Still. Quiet. But no longer unknown. He nodded faintly. Then stepped out. 'Cause now, there was something else to do. Something important. Someone needed to be told. And time. Time still mattered. The stretcher rolled steadily across the front yard. Wheels turning softly over the uneven ground. Daniel walked beside it, one hand lightly resting near the rail. Not interfering, just present. The paramedics moved with quiet efficiency, guiding the elderly man toward the ambulance waiting at the curb. Rex followed close behind. Calm. Focused. His earlier tension had eased but not disappeared. Not yet. The back doors of the ambulance opened with a muted clang. Careful, easy, one of the medics said as they lifted the stretcher inside. Daniel stepped back slightly, giving them space. But his eyes never left the man. Still breathing. Still holding on. A fragile thread but unbroken. That was close. Another medic murmured, adjusting equipment inside. Daniel nodded faintly. Yeah. But his gaze shifted downward. To Rex. He knew. Rex stood still beside him, looking toward the ambulance. His ears flicked once at the movement, then settled again. His posture wasn't alert anymore. It was steady, grounded, as if the urgency had passed, but the responsibility hadn't. Daniel rested a hand briefly on his back. You did good, partner. Rex's tail moved once. Slow, subtle. The ambulance doors closed. A soft final sound. Then the engine started. Daniel stepped back as it pulled away, lights flashing quietly, no sirens this time. Just motion. Purpose. Hope. He watched until it turned the corner and disappeared from view. The street fell silent again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt lighter. Daniel exhaled deeply. For the first time since arriving, he let the moment settle. Then his radio crackled. Unit 14 update? Daniel reached for it. Victim located and transported. Condition critical but stable. Scene secure. Copy that. He clipped the radio back onto his vest. Then glanced toward the house again. Still standing. Still quiet. But no longer holding its secret. Rex shifted slightly, turning his head toward the street. Then back to Daniel. Waiting. Daniel nodded. Yeah, we're not done yet. He walked back toward the cruiser, Rex moving in step beside him. The rhythm returned, but slower now. Thoughtful. Measured. Daniel opened the passenger door. Rex paused for a moment before jumping in. Just a brief hesitation. A glance back toward the house. Then he climbed inside. Daniel noticed. You're still thinking about it. He closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side. Sliding into the seat, he sat quietly for a moment before starting the engine. The hum returned. Familiar. Grounding. But his mind was elsewhere. On the photograph. On the packed bag. On the empty space where a family should have been. He pulled out slowly from the curb, driving down the quiet street. The neighborhood looked the same. Unchanged. People going about their day. Unaware. Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel just slightly. They don't know. Rex shifted in his seat. Not restless. Just present. Listening. Daniel exhaled. All right. Let's find them. He reached for the small notepad resting near the console. Jotted down the address. The name on the mailbox. Every detail he could recall. Then, he made a call. Dispatch, I need assistance locating next of kin for the resident at the address I just cleared. A pause. Then a response. Stand by. Daniel glanced ahead. Eyes steady on the road. Rex's ears flicked at the sound of the radio. Then settled again. Time moved differently now. Each minute mattered. But it didn't feel rushed. Felt purposeful. After a moment the radio crackled again. Unit 14, we have a listed contact. Daughter. Address available. Daniel's chest eased slightly. Send it. A beep. Information came through. Daniel nodded. Got it. He turned the wheel gently at the next corner. Changing direction. Rex shifted with the motion, maintaining his balance easily. Daniel glanced at him. We're going to bring them back. Rex blinked slowly. Calm. Certain. The drive took longer than expected. Traffic. Signals. The small delays of everyday life. Daniel felt each one. But he didn't rush. Didn't push. He stayed steady. Because this moment, it needed care. Finally, he turned onto a quieter street. Different from the last. More active. More alive. Children's voices in the distance. A car pulling into a driveway. Normal life. He parked slowly in front of a modest home. Engine idling for just a second before he turned it off. Silence returned. But again, not the same kind. This one carried anticipation. Daniel sat for a moment. Hands resting on the wheel. Breathing steady. Rex watched him. Waiting. Daniel nodded once. Let's go. He stepped out of the cruiser. Rex followed. The leash clipped on with a soft click. They walked up the short path toward the front door. Daniel paused. Just for a moment. Then knocked. Firm. Respectful. Footsteps approached from inside. Quick. Unaware. The door opened. A woman stood there. Mid-30s. Concern flickering across her face at the sight of the uniform. Yes. Daniel softened his tone immediately. Ma'am. I'm Officer Reeves. A pause. The moment stretched. Her expression shifted. Slight tension. What is it? Daniel glanced briefly at Rex. Then back at her. There's been an incident involving your father. Her breath caught. What? Daniel kept his voice calm. Steady. He's alive, he said gently. But he was found unconscious at home. He's been taken to the hospital. Silence. Then, emotion. Quick. Rising. Her hand moved to her mouth. Oh my God. Daniel continued slower now. He's stable. But he needs you there. She nodded rapidly, already stepping back. I'll get my keys, just give me a second. Her voice trembled. Movement filled the house behind her. Urgent. Real. Daniel stepped aside, giving her space. Rex remained calm at his side. Still. Grounding. A few moments later she returned. Eyes wide. Grateful. Afraid. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Daniel nodded gently. You're welcome. She hesitated. Then looked down at Rex. Her expression softened slightly. Was it him? Daniel followed her gaze. A faint smile touched his face. Yeah. He reached down, resting his hand on Rex's back. It was him. Rex stood quietly, tail giving a small, slow movement. The woman exhaled, emotion settling in her eyes. Then she nodded once and turned toward her car. Daniel watched as she left. The engine started, pulled away, heading toward the hospital, toward her father, toward a moment that almost never happened. Daniel stood there for a while, silent, still. Then he looked down at Rex again. You didn't just find him. His voice softened. You brought them back. Rex looked up at him. Calm. Present. Daniel nodded. Let's go, partner. They turned back toward the cruiser. The day was still unfolding. But something important had already been saved. Not just a life, but a connection. A family. And all of it, because one dog refused to walk away. The hospital waiting area was quiet in a different way. Not empty, not still like the house had been, but filled with a soft, constant motion. Muted footsteps. Low voices. The distant hum of machines behind closed doors. Daniel sat near the far end of the room, hands resting loosely together, posture calm but attentive. Rex lay beside him. Still. Relaxed, at least on the surface. But every so often, his ears would lift slightly, catching a sound, then settle again. Watching. Always watching. Hours had passed since the ambulance left. Long enough for the afternoon light to fade into early evening. The sky outside the tall windows had turned a soft shade of blue-gray. Time had slowed. But it hadn't stopped. Daniel glanced toward the hallway leading to the treatment rooms. Waiting. Not impatiently. Just present. Beside him, Rex shifted slightly, adjusting his position before resting his head gently on his paws. A quiet sigh escaped him. Daniel noticed. You're tired too, huh? Rex didn't lift his head, but his tail moved once. Soft. Daniel leaned back slightly in his chair. The weight of the day settled in slowly now. Not heavy, not overwhelming, just real. A nurse passed by, offering a small reassuring smile. Still waiting. Daniel nodded. Yes, ma'am. He's stable, she said gently. Doctors are doing everything they can. Daniel exhaled. Thank you. She nodded and continued on. The word stable lingered. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was hope. And right now, that was enough. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed lightly from the hallway. Daniel looked up. The woman from earlier, his daughter, appeared, moving quickly but not chaotically. Her eyes scanned the room until they found him. Relief crossed her face. You're still here. Daniel stood. Of course. She stepped closer, her voice quieter now. They said he's going to make it. Her words trembled slightly, caught between disbelief and gratitude. Daniel nodded gently. That's good news. She let out a breath she had been holding for hours. I didn't even know, she said softly. I talked to him 2 days ago. He sounded fine. He said he was just resting. Her voice trailed off, emotion catching up. Daniel listened. Silent. Respectful. He must have fallen or something happened, she continued, shaking her head slightly. And I didn't know. Rex lifted his head slowly. His eyes rested on her now. Calm. Present. She noticed. Her expression softened. She stepped a little closer to him. Hi, she whispered gently. Rex didn't move. He simply watched her. Then after a moment, his tail moved once. A quiet acknowledgement. Her eyes filled slightly. They told me it was him. Daniel glanced down at Rex, then back at her. He found something wasn't right before I did. She nodded slowly, looking at Rex again. He saved my dad. Her voice broke just slightly, but she steadied herself. Daniel gave a small reassuring nod. He gave him a chance. She knelt down carefully in front of Rex. Slow. Respectful. Not reaching immediately. Just being there. Rex watched her, then leaned forward slightly, closing the distance. Her hand met his fur gently. Warm. Soft. A quiet connection. Thank you, she whispered. Rex remained still. Accepting. Present. Daniel watched the moment quietly. There was no rush. No need to speak. Just a simple exchange. Gratitude. Understanding. After a moment she stood again, wiping her eyes lightly. I don't know how to thank you, she said to Daniel. You already have, he replied gently. She shook her head. No, really. If you hadn't come. Her voice trailed off, the thought unfinished. Daniel didn't fill it. He simply nodded once, because they both understood. Silence settled again, but this time, it felt warm. The kind of silence that comes after something has been saved. A doctor approached from the hallway. Professional. Calm. Family of Mr. Harris? The woman stepped forward immediately. That's me. The doctor offered a reassuring expression. He's awake. Her breath caught. He is. Yes. Weak, but responsive. You can see him briefly. Tears filled her eyes again. Relief. Real relief. She turned back to Daniel. I thank you. Daniel nodded. Go. She didn't hesitate. She followed the doctor down the hall. Daniel watched until she disappeared from view, then slowly sat back down. Rex settled beside him again. The same position as before. But something had changed. Tension was gone. Daniel exhaled deeply. He made it. Rex's ears flicked once, then relaxed. Minutes passed. Quiet. Unhurried. Then, footsteps again. Slower this time. The woman returned. Her expression different now. Soft. Full. He asked about you, she said gently. Daniel looked up. Me. And him, she added, glancing down at Rex. Daniel smiled faintly. How is he? She exhaled softly. Tired, but he knows what happened. He remembers trying to reach the phone. And then nothing. Her voice softened further. He said. He thought no one would find him. Daniel's chest tightened slightly, but he didn't speak. She looked at Rex again. Until someone did. Rex lifted his head slightly, meeting her gaze. Calm. Steady. Daniel rested his hand gently on Rex's back. You did good, partner. Rex's tail moved again. Slow. Content. The woman smiled through the emotion. You're both welcome to visit when he's stronger. Daniel nodded. We'd like that. She gave a small grateful nod, then stepped back, giving them space. Daniel leaned back in his chair again. The hospital no longer felt heavy, not like before. Now it felt hopeful, healing, a place where something broken was being gently put back together. He looked down at Rex. You felt it before anyone else. Rex blinked slowly. Calm. Daniel smiled faintly. Guess I'm still catching up. Rex rested his head back on his paws. Peaceful. Present. And for the first time that day, everything felt steady again. Morning arrived gently. Soft light filtered through the hospital windows, carrying with it a quiet sense of renewal. The sharp edges of the previous day had softened, replaced by something calmer, something whole. Daniel stepped through the hospital entrance, Rex walking beside him. No urgency this time. No tension. Just a steady, familiar rhythm. The kind that comes after everything has settled. Rex's paws moved quietly across the polished floor. His posture relaxed but attentive as always. His ears flicked occasionally at passing sounds, footsteps, distant voices, the rolling of carts, but his body remained at ease. They reached the reception desk. I'm here to see Mr. Harris, Daniel said calmly. The nurse smiled. He's been asking about you. Daniel nodded. Thank you. A short walk down the hallway. This time it didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. They stopped outside the room. Daniel paused for a moment, then knocked softly. A voice answered from inside. Weaker than before but clear. Come in. Daniel opened the door slowly. The room was bright. Curtains drawn back. Sunlight resting gently across the bed. Mr. Harris lay propped up against a pillow, his face pale but alive with awareness. Tubes and monitors remained, but they felt less overwhelming now, more like support than urgency. His eyes moved to the doorway, then widened slightly. Well, he said, a faint smile forming. There he is. Daniel stepped inside. Rex followed. Calm. Measured. Mr. Harris's gaze dropped immediately to the dog. Emotion flickered across his face. You're the one, aren't you? Rex paused a few feet from the bed. Still. Observing. Daniel stepped closer. This is Rex, he said gently. Mr. Harris nodded slowly. I remember. A sound, maybe a bark. His voice was quiet, each word carefully placed. Daniel gave a small smile. He didn't give up. Mr. Harris let out a soft breath. I'm glad he didn't. There was a moment of silence. Not empty, but full. Rex took a step forward. Then another. Slow. Respectful. He stopped beside the bed. Close enough now. Mr. Harris hesitated for just a second, then reached out his hand. Carefully. Rex leaned in. Just slightly. Allowing the contact. A gentle touch. Firm eating skin. Warm. Real. Mr. Harris closed his eyes briefly. Emotion settling in. Thank you, he whispered. Rex remained still. Present. Daniel watched quietly from the side. No need to speak. The moment carried itself. After a few seconds, Mr. Harris opened his eyes again. You know, I thought I was just tired that day, he said softly. Tried to get up to call my daughter. His voice drifted. But my legs wouldn't listen. Daniel nodded gently. You were found in time. Mr. Harris looked at Rex again. Because of him. Daniel didn't correct it. Because it was true. The room filled with a quiet understanding. A moment that didn't need explanation. Just acknowledgement. A soft knock came at the door. The daughter stepped in. Her eyes moved immediately to her father. Then to Daniel. Then to Rex. A small smile spread across her face. You came. Daniel nodded. We said we would. She stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her father's arm. He's been telling everyone about the dog, she said softly, a hint of warmth in her voice. Mr. Harris chuckled faintly. Well, it's not every day you get a second chance like that. Rex shifted slightly at the sound of his voice. His tail moved once. Slow. Content. The daughter looked down at him. You've got quite the reputation already. Daniel smiled faintly. He's earned it. The room settled into a calm rhythm. Conversation flowed lightly. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Just people sharing space after something that almost never happened. After a while, Daniel stepped back slightly. We should let you rest. Mr. Harris nodded. I'd like that. But don't be strangers. Daniel glanced at Rex. Then back at him. We won't. The daughter walked them to the door. Thank you again, she said quietly. Daniel met her gaze. You were already on your way back to him. She shook her head gently. No, you made sure I got there. Daniel didn't argue. He just nodded once. Rex stood calmly beside him. The same quiet presence. Steady. Reliable. They stepped out into the hallway. The door closed softly behind them. And for a moment, they stood there. Still. The world moving around them. But something inside had settled. Completely. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then looked down at Rex. You know, I almost missed it. Rex looked up at him. Ears relaxed. Eyes calm. Daniel shook his head lightly. But you didn't. A small pause. Then, he knelt down. Just slightly. Resting a hand on Rex's shoulder. Guess I'm the one learning from you. Rex leaned into the touch. Just enough. A quiet connection. Daniel stood again. They began walking down the hallway. Side by side. The same rhythm as always. But deeper now. Stronger. Because something had changed. Not just a successful call. Not just a rescue. But a reminder. Of trust. Of instinct. Of a bond that didn't need words. Outside, the morning air felt fresh. Alive. The sunlight brighter than the day before. Daniel opened the cruiser door. Rex hopped in. Settling easily into his place. Daniel paused for a moment before getting in. Looking out across the parking lot. At the world continuing. People moving. Life unfolding. He smiled faintly. Then slid into the driver's seat. The engine started. A familiar sound. But the silence that followed was different now. Warmer. Full. He glanced at Rex. Ready, partner? Rex's tail moved once. Steady. Certain. Daniel nodded. Yeah, me too. The cruiser pulled out slowly. Back onto the road. Back into the rhythm of the day. But something stayed with them. Quiet. Unseen. Unbreakable. 'Cause sometimes, it's not training. It's not commands. It's not routine. Sometimes, it's trust. And the quiet voice of instinct. That refuses to be ignored. And because of that, a life was saved. A family was restored. And a bond became something even deeper. Something lasting. Something real. Something that would never be questioned again.